Okay, well, good evening and welcome to the Thursday, October 6, 2022 meeting of the Planning Board. Our first order of business is to review and approve minutes. We have minutes from August 4th, 2022. Does anyone have any questions or comment? Oh, Mr. Rao is not present at the moment. Did anybody get word that he would not be present tonight? Okay, well, maybe he'll come in, but as it stands right now, Mr. Rao is unaccounted for. Any questions or comments relative to the minutes of the meeting? Mr. Jerry?
I have none.
Mr. Rotalakis?
I have none.
Mr. Thomas?
I have none.
And I have none either. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the August 4th, 2022 minutes as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our next item of business is to review and sign bills. We have bills listed here. First one is Graves Engineering for 440 Hartford Turnpike, second site plan review for $1,413. The next one is Graves Engineering 420 Boston Turnpike, site plan review for $2,161.21. The next one is Graves Engineering for 195 Main Street, second site plan review for $717. And the final one is for GZA Geo-Environmental Incorporation for Falcon Farms Geotechnical Review for $1,264.95 for a total of $5,556.16. Do I have a motion?
I move that we authorize the expenditures as read by the chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll get into our next item of business is board member comments. Mr. Jerry.
I have no comments this month.
Mr. Rotalakis.
I have no comments this month either, Mr.
Mr. Thomas.
I have no comments, sir.
And I have no comments either. I can help with the side noise that's going on over here. Just so that you know, tonight during the week, we were notified that all of the hearings are going to be continued to next month. So there will be no public hearing, or there will not be no hearing today for any of the open items that are in front of us. So you're welcome to sit around and listen to what the rest of our meeting is going to be, but there will be no hearing on any open project, okay?
When will be the next hearing?
Our next meeting is,
Thursday, November 3rd.
thank you.
I just checked the agenda before coming in. It was still showing that the hearings are on. Was
Shouldn't.
the website updated?
I don't know.
Request to continue on the side.
Yeah, so if you look at you have to look at the agenda,
Yeah,
and on to the left-hand side, it'll have request to continue if there's
I saw that. Yeah.
so that means that they're requesting to not show up for the night.
Oh, okay. We didn't understand that. Okay. Just saw the date and then.
So if you see a request to continue next month, that means the hearing you're here for will not be heard that month either.
Okay, and just to make a clarifying point, somebody else came in earlier, you will not get any other additional notifications because you'll only get the first notification, which you got. I imagine you're here for the car dealership?
Yep.
Okay, so that notification you got is the only one you'll get. You will not get any more for any more meetings, okay? So you'll know right now, the next meeting is scheduled for next month, okay?
Okay.
You're not going to get any additional notification. You can check in with Town Hall to find out if it's going to be continued or not, okay?
So are the dates published for the rest of the year? I mean, when the meetings happen?
Yes,
Yes,
First Thursday
calendar.
of every month.
first Thursday of every month for the planning board.
but if you go to the town's website and look at the planning department's page,
Yep.
you post the agenda there, correct? So the agenda's posted there and it will be saying if it's being continued or not for that date.
All right.
Okay, but you're welcome to stay.
No, that's fine. So, so we have one question though. So
No, I'm sorry.
can we ask one question?
No, you may not. What we're going to do is we're going to open the hearing
Yep.
and we're going to continue it. So we don't have, the representative is not going to be here.
No.
Or do you have questions? No, so you can't ask any questions about the plan.
Questions about that.
Sure.
General question. So, we as the residents of the Maplewood condominiums have, some concerns to be addressed. So we have a proposed, letter signed by all the residents. Can we give it to you?
You can turn that into the planning department
They'll give it to us.
and they'll hand it to us.
Yeah.
Okay?
We sent it all the online copy, but we just want to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other general questions about process? Okay. Like I said, you're welcome to stay. It's very exciting. Okay. So as you leave, could I ask you just please to keep your voices down, because it does muffle and
We're being recorded.
we're being recorded, so you'll get to watch this again, if you so choose. Thank you. Okay, our first hearing is a continued public hearing for proposed warehouse and distribution facility, site plan approval, location 440 Hartford Turnpike. Mr. Rotalakis is recusing himself. We do have a letter for request to continue. Does anyone have any questions or comments relative to the request to continue?
I do not.
I do not, sir.
And I do not. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we continue the proposed warehouse and distribution facility site plan approval for Shrewsbury Land Property Owner LLC to November 3rd,
Yes.
2022 at 7 PM.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our next public hearing is a continued public hearing for a proposed collision center and retail building for site plan review, Mag RE Holdings, 800 Boston Turnpike LLC. The location is 420 Boston Turnpike. We also have a request to continue for that as well. Does anyone have questions or comments relative to the request to continue?
I have none.
Mr. Rotalakis?
None.
Mr. Jerry?
I have none.
I do
Mr.
not
Thomas.
either. I would entertain a motion.
I move that we continue the site plan approval for 800 Boston Turnpike until November 3rd, 2022 at 7 PM.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our next item of business is another continued public hearing for 1 Greenbrier Road, over 55 housing development, site plan approval and special permit, Cypress Avenue Development LLC. Location is 1 Greenbrier Road and 169R Gulf Street. We also have a letter to continue on that one. Any questions or comments relative to the continuance request? Mr. Jerry?
I have none.
Mr. Rotalakis?
I have none.
Mr. Thomas?
I have none.
I do not either. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we continue the site plan approval and special permit for 1 Greenbrier Road until Thursday, November 3rd, 2022 at 7 PM.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Our next item of business is a new public hearing. This is for a proposed automobile dealership, site plan approval, Box Shrewsbury Worcester LLC. Location is 701 Boston Turnpike. Mr. Thomas, please read the notice.
The Shrewsbury Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday evening, October 6, 2022, at 7 PM in the Selectmen's Hearing Room at the Richard D. Carney Municipal Office Building, 100 Maple Avenue, to hear the application of Box Shrewsbury, Worcester, LLC, attention Michael Clemmy, 111 Moore Street, Norwood, Mass. 02062, as required by the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw, Section 7F3, for site planning approval by the Planning Board to allow for the construction of a proposed automobile dealership. The proposed development is shown on plans entitled Site Plan Proposed Automobile Dealership on 24 sheets dated August 22nd, 2022, prepared by Thompson List and Associates, P.O. Box 570, Boylston, Mass. 01505, stamped by Patrick J. Healy, P.E. The subject project is at the northwest corner of South Street and Boston Turnpike and consists in whole or in part of the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 34, Plot 077000, and Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 35, Plot 006000. A copy of the application, plans, and reports may be seen in the office of the Municipal of the Planning and Economic Development Department at the Richard D. Carney Municipal Office Building, 100 Maple Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass., and on the Planning Board website.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. We also have a letter for a request to continue this hearing as well. Do we have any questions or comments relative to the continuance? Mr. Jerry?
I have none.
Mr. Rotalakis?
I have none.
Mr. Thomas?
I have none.
And I do not either, so I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we grant the requested continuance of the Box Shrewsbury LLC site plan approval, 701 Boston Turnpike, until Thursday, November 3rd, 2022 at 7 PM.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that does it for our hearings and meetings for this evening. Next item of business is new business. We have been requested to discuss, recommend, I have some recommendations, I should say, to the Zoning Board of Appeals for waiver requests relative to the 409 South Street Comprehensive Permit application. They're quite extensive. There's a total of, I think, 22 of these items. So I think what it might make best sense to do is just go one by one down the line. if anyone has questions or comments, we can have this more as an open dialogue, and then we'll make a recommendation whether we agree that it's something that we would support, or we have no opinion, or we want to leave it up to somebody else, however we want to go. First one has to deal with the senior housing is not allowed within the office research zoning district. That's obviously why the 40B comprehensive permit is around, so it would make sense that we need a waiver for that, so I guess that one makes sense. I have no issue with that. Anybody have questions or comments?
I have none.
I have none.
Good.
Next one has to deal with Section 7 of the zoning board, site location and building structures for height regulations. I did monitor, I did not watch the entire ZBA hearing, but I did watch the portion where the fire department expressed some deep concern that our ladder truck cannot reach the height of the 54 feet, even with a 70-foot ladder, based on the topography of the site and where the ladder would have to be staged. So I think I would lean on the fire department to give a more comprehensive response to that, but based on that, I would not necessarily be in favor of allowing that height restriction. So I don't know if anybody else have any questions.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Tim.
I'm in agreement with that. I think that's a concern.
Me too.
I agree also. I think it should be more weighed in upon by the fire department.
Okay. Next item of business, so Emily or Luis, does somebody take a notes for this so that we can make the recommendation letter all at the end and just say, based on our comments, which ones that we're either in favor for or leaning towards, whichever way. Okay, thank you. Our next item is number 3, which is under Section 7, Development of Site, Location, and Building and Structure for areas, frontage, yard and lot coverage requirements under Table 2. That talks about side and rear setbacks. They're looking for this waiver. It looks to me to, actually, everyone should have gotten a copy of the plot plan too. Looks like they want to put some preferred parking garage spaces on the perimeter of two of the sides of the building. It gets pretty close to the property line, like 5.8 feet, I see is the lowest one there. My personal opinion is it's preferred parking. I'm not necessarily in agreement that it needs to, I wouldn't be in favor of that waiver because I think that abuts a residential lot, and I think we need to have as much of our site plan stay in context of how the rules and regulations are set as best we can. So if, that's just my opinion. I don't know if anybody else has another opinion. We can have differing opinions. It's okay.
No, when I looked at this one, I didn't see a really compelling reason to grant it.
I just thought about the person that owns the lot that has the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, that they would just be looking at the back of basically garages. The
Yes.
whole entire lot. So, and again, being 5 feet from the property line, I had a little bit of an issue with that. So, does everyone feel kind of the same way? So
Yeah,
I guess
I
we would
think
not necessarily
that
be
would
in
be-
favor of that.
Yeah, I think that would be better as a landscaped area than garages.
I agree. Okay. The next one is number 4, Section 7, Development of Site and Location of Building Structures, Off-Street Parking and Loading Areas. My understanding through the ZBA hearing is this is being addressed through some negotiations within that meeting, so I guess they got that one under control. I don't have to worry about that. Number 5, Section 7, Development of Site and Location of Building and Structures, Off-Street Parking and Loading Areas. This has to do with this, we have a width and depth for parking spaces being 19 feet long. They're looking to go to 18 feet. I know I had a conversation on a meeting earlier this week that in prior meetings that I've had here, I've not been in favor of the 18-foot. I've been in parking lots where the shorter parking spaces tend to cause a bit of an issue. Cars and vehicles are not getting any smaller, in my opinion, and it hasn't been that way for the past 10 years. So I don't necessarily think that I would be in favor of that. And where there is so much parking on here, I think we need the additional space for the vehicles. That's just an opinion. I'm open to suggestions.
I agree. I think that's reasonable.
That's fine.
Mr. Jerry, any question or comment?
No, I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
Most of the new cars have cameras. That's kind of what I envision what's gonna happen.
All the beep, beep, beeps.
People are gonna be backing into.
Well, they're gonna go off as soon as you put it in reverse, because they're gonna see the car right behind
Yeah.
you. Teasing. Okay, so it looks like that we're not necessarily in favor of that one. Number 6, Section 7, development of site and location of building and structures, off-street parking and loading areas. This has to do with the maximum grade greater than 6% in any direction. Given the fact that it's a tough site, I get that, but when we look at, in my opinion, with it being an over 55, you're adding another element to that, so I'm not so much, I don't know what the highest percentage grade they had on site. Kristen, do you happen to know that?
I
If you-
don't have it offhand, but.
But
for you.
But I just think that one is probably something I'd have to really dig deep into, but on its face value, I would not necessarily be in favor of that. I don't know about anybody else.
That seems reasonable. 6%'s a fair amount, especially we're in New England, snow, ice.
Yep.
And this is just on this southerly side? These,
This is across the, drawing on the southerly side of the building. Well, that's where they're identifying it as being greater than 6%.
do we know how many spaces are affected by that?
I don't. So maybe that's a consideration that the ZBA can take into account, depending on where it is. They may decide that it's reasonable, and that's perfectly fine. I think as a general statement, though, I was thinking as more of a holistic part of the site. But if they have more information, they can certainly take that into account. I'm gonna hold my opinions, and I'm gonna ask somebody else for an opinion for the next one. So the next one is number 7, Section 7, development, site and location of building and structures, off-street parking and loading, areas 3B. Any questions or comments relative to that? Or either in favor or not in favor?
I don't really see it as a problem.
This has, so I should define it a little bit more. This has to do with requiring loading space shall be at least 10 feet wide, 40 feet long, and 14 feet high for loading stock, loading areas. So their loading area is towards the back of I believe it's towards the back. I could be off.
What are they loading?
That would be materials, right?
It could be people moving in. It could be people moving in or moving out, taking garbage and trash. There will be some activities on site, so it could be supplies associated with activities or cleaning supplies for general lobby functions.
Yeah, I don't see it as a big deal, truthfully.
There's no common dining facilities in this.
Not that we're aware of,
Yeah,
no.
so there's, okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't
Do-
be like a
do you-
Sodexo truck or anything
Yeah.
like that, right?
Is this in this same southerly area here where it says owner coordinated move-in location? Or is this a different location on this plan?
So their waiver request and their mentality behind it is basically saying loading shall be coordinated through the owner. So it says the narrative above, but I don't know if you can call it to the exact waiver above. So I don't know if it's on the southerly section or not. So I wasn't present at the meeting, so I don't know where they're planning on having the loading spaces. Do they need, they need this information for tonight though, right? For them to move forward?
Well, the hearing most likely will be another 2 or 3 hearings. So their next meeting is the end of October. They won't be voting on any waivers in October. So if you want to discuss this further at November, there's definitely time available. This will most likely go through December.
Yeah, the only reason I'm asking the question is because the only spot on here that I could find that indicated any sort of loading was this labeled move-in area, which is also where it appears they're asking for the waiver for the 6% grade. So if you're loading and unloading in an area that's got significant grade, that would seem to be problematic. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand where it is on the plan.
Okay, so maybe our recommendation is, depending on the location of it, if it's not in a high-grade area, then we would not necessarily have opposition to that, okay? Or we would be in favor of it. Number 8, Section 7, development of site and location of building and structures, off-street parking, loading areas, 3C. This has to deal with all off-street parking loading areas permitted and/or required shall be screened from all adjoining lots in said district by either a strip of 4 feet wide densely planted or a solid wall or fence not less than 5 feet. You have the applicant's reasoning for not having that. I'm not necessarily in favor of that at all, because I think that allows for absolutely no vegetation on the outside edges of this property, and I just think it would stand out like a sore thumb. So I have a problem with that one.
It says grass, slopes, landscaping, and decorative stone, so I guess I'm not against the waiver, but I would probably, the ZBA should probably be aware of exactly what they're gonna put there instead of what the bylaw says, and make a decision from there.
All right, so if I'm reading this right, so they have an option to put a 4-foot wide densely planted or a fence, right? So a densely planted could be considered, is that considered grass, Kristen? Or that would have to be bushes?
I think that'd
It's
be
probably
a-
grasses, bushes, plantings.
But
It'll
this-
probably be decided at a further time, yeah.
This seems like it's aesthetic stuff that
Yeah.
we probably leave to the ZBA. 'Cause
Yep.
They're gonna
Yeah.
look at the whole thing.
They'll probably work with their design review engineer on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 9, Section 7, Development and Site Location of Building and Structures, D, Off-Street Parking and Loading Areas. This also has to deal with landscape buffer strip at least 15 feet wide, continuous except for approved driveways shall be provided adjacent to public ways to visually separate parking and other uses from the road. This additional, along other property lines, there shall be provided a landscape strip at least 5 feet in width with 1 tree for every 50 feet of perimeter. For parking lots containing 25 or more spaces, a minimum of 5% of the interior shall be maintained with landscaping. And when I look at this, for the third point here, I didn't see any interior landscaping on any of the parking in here, and I know that's something that we've brought up on many
Yes.
site plans. Not necessarily in the resident, as much as the residential as this one is, but I don't know, I would be in favor of having some sort of a landscape buffer. And like I said, where they're building this so close to the property lines, you gotta give the residents some protection here, in my view.
I agree.
Yeah, I sort of would lump this with the one before it, which they refer to a landscape plan that we don't have.
Yep.
So I don't really have much of an opinion, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we got somewhat of a landscaping plan. They would show us some trees or stuff if they had it on this side.
Yeah, if
Slowly.
there
It
are
doesn't look like very much, but that's just me.
It's a pretty tight site.
It's a very tight site.
Yeah, there's not much room.
Yeah. So 15 feet's a lot.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think that's kind of aesthetic. I guess I'd defer to the ZBA that's gonna review the plans, but.
Yep, okay. Section 7, development of, for number 10, Section 7, development site of location and building structures for signs. I understand the ZBA will be handling all the signage and all that, so I don't think that we need to weigh in on that at all. Number 11, Section 7, development of site and location of building and structures. F, site plan. 3, for site plan approval by the planning board. In discussion with Kristen, that definitely falls under the comprehensive permit, so that they won't need to come in front of the planning board. I'm okay with that. Everyone else is. Well, everyone has to be, it's the law.
Yeah.
Number 12, Section 7, development of site and location of building and structures, G, earth removal. This one has a section requirement of subsections 1 through 4. It wasn't very, I think it's a little vague in my view. I don't think we have enough information to give an opinion on this unless somebody is very familiar with what subsections 1 through 4 under earth removal are. So I think I would defer to the ZBA on that one. Anybody else?
No, I think you're right.
Right.
Okay. Number 13, Section 8, administration for occupancy permits. Regulations pertaining to the issuance of occupancy certificates. That's basically a building inspector responsibility, so I don't think we need to weigh in on that.
Nope.
14, Sections 1 through 4, regulations pertaining to development of plans pursuant to the subdivision control law. I'm fine with that. I know it's a lot of units, but it's not really a subdivision, so I don't have an issue with that one. 15, proposed Articles 1 through 7 and Appendix. This is regulations pertaining to the administrative procedures and processing of applications to the regulatory boards of the town of Shrewsbury. I believe the ZBA is negotiating their way through that, so we don't have to worry about that one. 16, rules and regulations for water connection permit. Procedures and fees pertaining to connections to the town of Shrewsbury municipal water system and requirements for a separate water connection permit. I believe that's also in negotiations through the ZBA.
Are they looking for a waiver of the fees in their entirety?
So there was a development agreement with the select board for the waiver of the fees for sewer. They were not necessarily waiving all of the water fees, and the sewer fees were an offset for improvements that will be done off-site and pertain only to the affordable units.
Okay.
So there's a formal development agreement that does that. So we'll look into this further of why they actually requested this type of waiver.
But this is a lip, right? So
Correct, it
yeah.
is a lip, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Number 17, Article 2, connections to public sewer, procedures and fees pertaining to connections to the town of Shrewsbury municipal sewer system and requirements for a separate sewer connection permit. Again, I believe it's under the LIP agreement. Number 18, water and sewer permits, fee outline for connection to the municipal system. I believe that also falls under the LIP agreement. Number 19, sections 1 through 22, administrative procedure for obtaining stormwater permit associated with discharge of runoff or alteration of land. And after discussion with Ms. Lass, it was understood that ZBA would be the granting authority for that permit, so that'll fall under their decision. Number 20, section 5 was fees. Application of stormwater utility fee, stormwater application review, and inspection fee falls under that same mindset of the earlier ones. 21, Section 15, application, requirement for completed application to be filed with the Department of Public Works, also in negotiations. And the last one, Section 17B, erosion and sediment control plan containment. This one is existing vegetation including trees, lines, canopy, layer, shrub layer, and ground cover, and trees with a caliber 12 inches or larger, noting specimen trees and forest communities. I do know that under our normal site plan review, we get that level of detail, and I know that this is a pretty interesting site. I think if I was looking at the site plan, I would want that personally myself. I don't know about yourselves.
I agree.
That's fine.
I agree.
So we would not necessarily be in a favor of supporting that.
Right.
The only other comment I want to make is at the bottom, there's a paragraph that the applicant placed down. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it boils down to that the application, I'll read one part. Actually, it looks like it's a long sentence, so I'll read it. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained herein, the applicant hereby requests relief from any other local rule, regulation, or ordinance, or to the extent necessary to construct and operate the project in accordance with the site development plans submitted with this application, or that would prohibit the development of the project or make such project uneconomic. Just making a simple statement here, as far as the planning board is concerned, and I think other boards are as well, financial impacts are the applicant's responsibility. Our understanding is he has to apply and adhere to policies, procedures, and rules and regulations, and with those rules and regulations come costs, and they make that determination. So I don't understand why that statement would be in there, because it's not our responsibility to make something economically friendly for them. They need to be responsible for that themselves. That's my opinion.
Particularly health, safety, and welfare issues.
Specifically around health, safety, and welfare, correct.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Rolikis. All right, with that being said, do we need a motion for this to recommend Luis to send a letter along to ZBA?
I don't think so, do you?
Do we?
It doesn't hurt if
We
you want
can.
to do it, just to make it for the public record.
I move that we authorize the chair to execute a letter consistent with the recommendations relative to the waivers we just discussed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our next item of business is another discussion, Mr. Rotalakis will be recusing himself, is to discuss and comment on GFI Partners has an ENF filing. Interstate Crossing Industrial Park, location is 274 Holden Street and 148 Clinton Street. If you recall, last year, it might have been, was it earlier this year? I think at town meeting, we approved it this year. Can't
Yeah, I think it was
remember.
before. town
So
meeting.
it could have been the
There's-
hearings
there's
we
been two
had.
town meetings.
Yeah, we had hearings earlier in the year or late last year, talking about the site that's up around, for those that are not familiar, up around the Worcester Sand and Gravel area. And the ENF filing that GFI Partners put in for was for a specific project they're looking to fit into that. We had recommendations that were sent forth to town meeting. Town meeting since has passed those to change the zoning in that area. So the question that was asked of us to look at today is, based on these very preliminary, nondescript plans that are put in front of us, is there anything that jumps out as being any major concern of what they're planning on doing? The ENF filing is just in the beginning status. We'll have much more information coming along as time moves on. Mr. Jerry?
I mean, nothing jumps off the page at me, but I would say it's a rather scarce level of detail, so based off of that,
Yep.
I would say nothing.
Well, keeping in mind that we had some hearings on the zoning article.
Right.
That really encapsulated, I think, the maximum height in this zone would be, what, 75 feet?
Right, it's 50 feet by right and 75 feet by special permit.
But we don't have what the height of the building would be here. They're just looking at, they're thinking about maybe a building of this size, type, in this type of maybe location, and if there was anything that struck us as being like, nah, that doesn't look right. To me, it seems fine for very early preliminary information. It does fall in line with what we had kind of moved along in front of town meeting anyway, so. Any questions or comments?
No, like Mr. Jerry said, there's not really much on this plan that could tell us much of anything anyway, so going with what we had already recommended back before a town meeting, I think this coincides with what we gave our recommendation for, so as of now, this looks okay until we see something further
Yeah.
in more detail.
Very good. Any
No, I agree. I think that's
Okay,
accurate.
we don't need to have a motion or anything for this one, right?
No,
This
so
is-
the town plans to send a comment letter to the MIPA office, so we can encompass that the planning board reviewed this in general and currently is in agreement that it falls within the zoning and their purview of, as they have seen the project progress, but they reserve the right to comment when the draft environmental impact report is filed and there's more details at that time.
See, that's why you do what you do.
Sure.
So much better with the words than we are.
Yes.
So I think that would be fine. Does anybody have any?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to say.
All right. With that, that's all we have for the evening. At this time, I'll entertain a motion I'll wait for Mr. Rotalakis to get back, because I know he likes to do this.
He likes to end the
I'm
I'd
meeting.
like to have a
See-
motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I move that we conclude this evening's public meetings.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I told you it was fun.